Welcome to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast, your go-to resource for personal development and coaching. I'm your host, Leticia Ringe, and I'm so glad you're here. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I'm Leticia Ringe, your coach and host, and this is our season finale for the current season on the podcast, all about love and romantic relationships. In today's episode, I'll be sharing how to create true love, whether you're single or in a relationship, as well as my 5 top tips for thriving in romantic relationship. This is, as I mentioned, our season finale before we move into a new season and a new volume on the podcast, which I'll tell you about at the end of this episode. Welcome to Relate Higher, a podcast dedicated to providing the leading standard in conscious higher relating and to teaching you a conscious framework for all of your relationships. This is your go-to resource for developing meaningful, conscious relationships across your life. I'm your host, award-winning relationship coach and consultant and former family lawyer, Leticia Ringe. I'm so glad you're here. So first things first, how do we create true love? True love is something that is created, not found. And most of us don't know what we even mean when we say we want true love. This is whether you're in a relationship or you're single and dating right now. We're using terms like true love, or maybe you use terms like a great relationship, a healthy relationship, even a secure relationship. But when we're actually asked in practical, clear, and very specific terms what that actually means to you, like if you had to give someone an instruction manual on how to show up in a way that you define as true love, what would that mean? What would you write down? Most of us have never asked ourselves this kind of question. And so we don't have those answers. And that's why we end up on this endless search trying to find something that we don't actually know how to define or communicate. So when we don't know how to define what we want, there are 2 problems. If you're in a relationship, it means that you can't communicate it to your partner. So you and your partner aren't able to come together and actually collaborate to make that particular thing that you desire happen. And if you're not in a relationship and you start dating again, you don't have a filter for dating. You're not able to test for compatibility because you don't know what you're testing for. Instead, we focus on ridiculous things like a person's height or bank account balance, like things that either really aren't what creates true love or things that can actually be changed, like someone can always make more money. So we need to have a look at the actual qualities that matter and know practically, specifically, and clearly how to actually define what it is we're searching for. Now, I recently did a masterclass called True Love. And in this masterclass, I did it as a workshop style. I gave lots of coaching prompts and journal questions throughout the masterclass to support you in getting more specific on what true love actually means to you. In today's episode, I'm going to share a summary of some of the things we talked about, but if you want to get the full experience and really take yourself through a practical step-by-step process to actually start getting clear on what true love means to you and how to actually position yourself to create it so that you're not dependent on anyone else and you're doing everything within your power that you're responsible for to create it on your end. If you'd love that, head to leticiaringe.com/true love. It's there for you now. You can dive on into the replay, and I'm very excited for you to do that work because truly the more people who understand how to create true love, the more love we actually have in the world and the better standards and modeling we have for romantic relationships. Okay, so that's the first point. When it comes to true love, it's something that's created, not found. Second point is, in order to create true love, you have to actually know what you mean when you use that term, or insert any of the other terms you tend to use when you're either complaining about what you don't have or talking about what you really want to create. The third point here is that we then need to look at all of the things that are in our power on our end. Now, just like any area of life, your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors are what create your experience of life. And it's the same for true love. Typically, our thoughts, and therefore our feelings, and therefore our behaviors, are actually primed with what we don't want. Most of us look at our lives as well as our relationships, looking at what we want to be different. And so this means we look at them through a lens of lack. We focus on the things we don't have. So when it comes to manifestation, which is really just how your thoughts affect your feelings, which therefore affects the way you show up, when it comes to this process, it means that your thoughts are usually focused on what you don't want. It creates feelings that are in alignment with that, which are also the feelings that you don't want to experience. And then it leads you to acting in ways that create more of what you don't want rather than the things that you do want. You keep deferring your power to someone else when you think that true love is found in someone else, found in finding the perfect right partner, or found in your partner understanding what you want and need and giving that to you. There is another really important piece of that pie, and it is what you're responsible for. And that is your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. So it's really important to have a look at what you actually want to create, the result being true love, and work your way back with how you'd create that. If you were showing up in a way where your behavior was creating true love, what would that look like? And how would you need to feel in order to do those things? Also, if you want to experience true love, you need to understand how it feels. So being able to cultivate a state of love is really important. And if we then work backwards another layer, we want to look at our thoughts and beliefs, the ones that we're choosing to focus most of our time and attention on. Are those thoughts in alignment with creating that state of love, or those emotions that lead you to stepping into behaviors that actually create love? I give some really, really good examples in the True Love Masterclass on what this looks like, how most people approach this, and how it leads to creating the opposite of what you want, and what it would look like to actually be in alignment with your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, creating true love. So that's something you really, really need to learn how to do and pay attention to, and I can help you in the True Love Masterclass. So when you focus on what you don't have, which is very common, it leads you to creating more of that rather than accepting reality as it is and stepping into conscious creation. So this brings me to point 4. What I'm not doing here is asking you to put on rose-colored glasses to accept and tolerate a situation that is actually not in alignment with true love, a healthy relationship, or a secure relationship, a great relationship, a successful relationship, whatever terms you're using to describe what you want. It's actually really important that we're able to see things as they are, and we're able to recognize where improvement is needed. That's what I call accepting reality. And because many of the people I support in my coaching are people with a coaching and personal development background, i.e. they work in the industry or maybe they're therapists, they tend to have this pattern that I've called rose-colored glasses. This is where they understand manifestation and conscious creation. And so they start telling themselves everything's great, everything's amazing, and get themselves into really high vibrational states. But at the same time, they're not accepting reality as it is. And so there is this inauthenticity behind what they're doing, and you can feel it. I feel this all the time in my conversations with people who are doing this. And that is not what actually creates what you want. That's why you're doing all of this work. You feel like you're kind of on a hamster wheel, but you're not actually creating what you want. And this is because we're missing the first part of all transformation, and that is accepting reality as it is. Once you've accepted reality as it is, then you're going to move into realigning yourself to consciously create what you want. So you see reality as it is. You see the places where things need to improve in terms of your relationship and also the way you're dating and who you're attracting and what you want to create. And then you have a look at your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. And you ask yourself to step into alignment with creating the experience of love that you want, rather than continuing to create more of what you don't want. Okay, next point is about protective patterns. Now, the reason this is so challenging is because even when you're aware that this is what's happening, that you haven't defined what you actually want, that your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are not in alignment with what you actually want, and maybe even that you're not accepting reality as it is, then on top of all of that, you've got this other issue, which are unconscious behaviors, i.e. strategies that you've learned when you were a child, which actually block your desires from being met. Now, we all have protective patterns. This is the first piece of work I do with any client I'm working with on any topic, and I help them to identify what those unconscious protective strategies and behaviors are that are getting in the way of their core desires. Now, what is so interesting is I have conversations with people all the time throughout my life, and they tell me what they want, and they usually tell me in a way where either someone they're dating or dated in the past or someone they're with right now doesn't do this particular thing, or they are not doing something that they want them to do. And it's so interesting because as I get to know that person more, actually the thing that they are judging in the other person is exactly what they are doing to some degree. It is so fascinating. Now, don't be hard on yourself. We all do this. We're humans. This is just how it works. So it's really important that you get yourself support to get clear on what your protective patterns are so that you can start to unwind them and the damage they do in your romantic life, but also across the rest of your life. Now, as I work with clients, I start to give these common patterns names. We've got rose-colored glasses, the invisibility cloak, the withdrawing pattern, being defensive, micromanaging, and then there's also anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. And for those of you who may have experienced CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, or childhood post-traumatic stress disorder, or even in your adult life, you've experienced some kind of PTSD or trauma, you will also have behaviors that come from a place of dysregulation that you've been repeating for a long time that you're probably not aware of, that might also be what are blocking your core desires. And it's really difficult when you've experienced them throughout your life because you just think that they're normal. But actually, people who haven't experienced CPTSD or trauma, who haven't had their brain injured in the same way that you have, they would never accept the kind of behavior that you're doing to yourself that is stopping you from getting what you want and really just tolerating circumstances that other people wouldn't. Now, as I mentioned before, this is not something to shame yourself about. This is just how we work as humans. But you can unwind these patterns, and that is the bulk of what I do with all of my clients in any way that I support them in coaching, because that's what leads you to lasting transformation. So this work is not to be underestimated, and I recommend that you get really, really clear on what those behaviors are standing in your way, and that's something that I can help you do in any of my coaching programs, including my Conscious Relationship Coaching Program, which you can find more details about at leticiaringe.com/CRCP, or you can head to leticiaringe.com/coaching. Now, the final point I have here is that we also need to have a look at our beliefs about what is possible. We have so many terrible limiting beliefs that we get from society and then also from the people who we share our life with. Ones like, we should just go with the flow. If things are not working, it means that something's wrong and you're not with the right person. You shouldn't need to work on it. This leads you to not working on your relationship. You need to work on your relationship in order to understand what its changing needs are, in order to be aware when something is no longer working, when support is required. You need to be aware of that in order to get the support that's needed to keep the romantic relationship and your romantic life thriving. This is what you also need to do for yourself as a human in order to keep you as a human thriving. You have to understand that working on yourself is how you nurture yourself. It's how you feel fulfilled. And without that, at some point, you will start to go stale. You'll start to be unsatisfied and unfulfilled. And that's when we go through a moment in our life where we realize something really significant needs to change here because I'm no longer feeling lit up by my life. That is a result of not working on it. And it's the same with our relationships. Now, it doesn't matter who you're with. It doesn't matter if you had a great relationship to begin with. At some point, if you are not looking at all of these things I've mentioned in today's episode, the fact that you need to understand what true love means to you in practical, specific, and clear terms, that you need to understand that true love is created, not found, that you need to understand that your thoughts, feelings, and your behaviors are what create true love and they need to be in alignment. You need to understand that in order to realign yourself with creating true love, you need to be able to accept reality as it is so that you can then step into conscious creation, being aware of what needs to change. You need to look at your protective patterns that get in the way and block your core desires. And you also need to be very aware of common cultural narratives and beliefs about what is actually possible in relationships and also about the work that is needed. We need to elevate our standards on what is possible in relationships while also understanding that in order to do that, and even just to have a relationship that is somewhat satisfying over the long term, you need to be working on it. And it doesn't matter who you're with, these issues will come up. And it also doesn't matter whether you're monogamous or polyamorous or open E&M in terms of your relationship structure that you choose, you'll still need all of these things. So I was recently at a supper club over here in London, and someone asked me, what would be the top 5 tips that you would give someone really quickly for thriving in romantic relationship? And so I wanted to end today's episode also giving you these 5 tips because I thought it was such a fun question and I thought it would be a great way to wrap up this season. Now, of course, there are so many tips I could give you. I could literally just do podcast episodes on the topic of love and romantic relationships for an entire year and still not have taught you everything that I know and I think really needs to be known on this subject. But unfortunately, that's not realistic. So I'm going to drill it down into 5 quick tips for you. Tip number 1 is you need to look at your protective patterns in any relationship issue, in any relationship ceiling. The problem is your protective patterns. Your protective patterns block your core desires from being met. So whether it's a little frustration or resentment, whether you've just reached a point in your relationship where you know, hey, this is great, I should be satisfied and grateful, but I feel like something needs to be different, or whether you're in major conflict or major scarcity and really wanting things to be different in your romantic life, like whatever the level is, whether it's a small issue or a major issue, your protective patterns are behind it. Number 2, you must work on your love and romantic life. You must work on your romantic partnerships and relationships. It is something that is always required. Just get up with the program. It's something that you'll always need to do. Don't make it a problem. Just do it. Look after yourself. Look after your love. Number 3, always get outside support to support you on your romantic relationship and also your love life when you're in a period of challenge. Most of us do not do this because of the cultural narratives that you shouldn't need to work on it, that you should just be able to go with the flow, otherwise you just need to get rid of them, or you should just be able to attract a partner. But it's just not true. It's really hard to see your own protective patterns because they are unconscious. It's really hard to see the behaviors that lead to disconnection and to not creating love. It's hard to see this because you've been doing it and repeating all of these patterns for a long time, and they were probably also modeled to you from your family members too. So that's how you were taught, and it's what you've been repeating. So when you get support, you get an outside perspective, and it's very, very helpful if you're in a relationship or if you're dating or single right now and want to position yourself to create the relationship you want in the future. Don't suffer in silence. And if there is any kind of mental health challenge you're going through as a couple, 100% get support for yourself. Your partner should also get support because they are caring for you, and it takes a huge toll. And you should also get support for your relationship as a couple too. Number 4, sex is something that should get better over time. If you are at a position in your romantic relationship where you feel like the only way to improve your sex life is to open up your relationship or have sexual interactions with someone else, you are missing the point. What helps you to have better sex is actually more about skill. It's less about just finding someone who's sexually compatible with you. So I would recommend that you spend time to create new skills on this area. And part of that requires you to get really aware of how to understand your partner and their sexual needs too. And this is something that would be really wonderful for both of you to work on in your relationship together. Number 5, commitment is absolutely required when it comes to thriving in romantic partnership. Commitment creates safety, and it can only be created through trust. So unless you and your partner have a full commitment to one another, to be with each other for the long term and do the work to allow the relationship to thrive, it's very likely you're not going to feel safe in this relationship. And most of us are in romantic relationships. We're married or committed, but we're not fully embodying commitment. We've got one foot out, whether that's something that's known or whether it's something that is simply energetic. So learning how to be all in is usually a personal journey. It's where you need to explore safety and trust within yourself. And that's also a journey that will lead to very high dividends when it comes to your relationship with yourself and also your partner. And that's also something I can support you with in any of my coaching programs. Okay, everyone, so there we have it. Everything that you need to know about true love and my 5 top tips for thriving in romantic partnership. Remember, you can access True Love, my masterclass, which will go into this in a more practical workshop style over at leticiaringe.com/true love. You'll find the replay there. And now get ready for a brand new season coming up, a new chapter and volume on the podcast. This new chapter and volume on the podcast is going to support all of your personal coaching and personal development needs. And it will also support all of you who work in the coaching and personal development industry, helping you with your actual skills as a coach and person who supports people through a personal development and transformation journey. It will support your craft, and it will also support your professional development. I've got so much to update you all on, and I'm super excited for this new season and also for the season we're wrapping up right now, all about love. I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to the Create a Life That Is Beautiful podcast, your go-to resource for personal development and coaching. To deepen your learning and practice, make sure you're subscribed to receive our community newsletter. Subscribe at leticiaringe.com/newsletter. And if you haven't yet left a 5-star review for the podcast, we ask that you please do that now so that this podcast can reach other listeners who also want to join us in creating a life that is beautiful.